Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to episode 10 of In the Red Corner. Joining us from his lunch break today, Mr. Grant Winstanley. How are we, sir?
Not too bad, mate. I'm a bit hungry, but the things that we do for the podcast, mate. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. It is locked down, but we've got places to be. I'm recording in work, and you're on your lunch break.
Yeah.
It's all about professionalism here.
Yeah.
Right, well, let's crack on because we've literally got an hour. My opening question for you this week was, with the transfer window slamming shut, as they say, this week, who won? If we're saying who's won a transfer window, who's come out of this in the strongest position, do you think?
Not United, that's for sure. A few teams for me obviously deserve a mention with their business, but automatically I probably lean towards Everton. Obviously started the season well. Porier, James, Alan, and they even picked up Ben Godfrey as well on transfer deadline day. Centre-halves are obviously hard to come by. And I think they even got a goalkeeper in as well. Now, I don't know if he's going to be challenging for number one, but I would say that they probably was looking for that upgrade on Pickford, I would say. I was surprised they didn't go for Romero from Man United. Yeah. They've obviously brought in a couple of, defensive assets. So I'm going to lean towards Everton. What about yourself?
It's hard to argue with Everton. And the reason being, you just look at the start they've had to the season and you can't argue that it's come off, hasn't it? They're playing well, they've gelled quickly.
Yeah.
If you're depending on how you're judging winning a transfer window, the names they brought in, but the fact they've gelled together and they're instantly playing well, it's hard to argue with that. I think on the face of it, you'd look at the Chelsea side and see the signings that they've brought in, and you think some good business there. But unlike Everton, it's not clicked yet. You wouldn't say there's a lot of promise there, and there's an argument that they've done really well this transfer window. But I guess it's down to Frank to get them playing well together. I think my other one, if I'm not saying Everton, I'd probably say Spurs. Again, They started off a bit shaky at the start of the season, but it seems to be coming together. They've made some very Mourinho-y, short-term thinking signings, but they've plugged all the gaps that they need to do, and they've not spent very much money doing it. So I think for me, if not Everton, probably Spurs. Are there any other notable mentions of people that, there's a few people who've done quite well out of it. Might not say they've done a transfer window, but they've done some good business.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the business of what Aston Villa have done. So bringing in, they've kind of strengthened in every area in a sense. So obviously, Ollie Watkins, Ross Barkley on loan, Emi Martinez from Arsenal. Obviously, a great start to the season. And kind of, if you look at Villa last season, they spent a lot of money, and it kind of didn't work out with players who were kind of un-Premier League proven in a way. So they've kind of changed that philosophy this year. I know obviously Watkins was a gamble on the step up, but obviously with them surviving kind of by the skin of the teeth, really, you look at the signings they've made now and the way they've started, and they're kind of probably moving away from relegation comfortably now, and pushing on for that mid-table finish. And I reckon they could, by the end of the season, they could easily be in like a worst case scenario, maybe 12th or 13th, and kind of cement their place back in the Premier League. I like Liverpool's business. I think Thiago and Jota coming in are nice upgrades and squad people. Squad players as well. Thiago obviously a big name. I would probably argue they probably would have liked to have bring in maybe a centre back. But having said that, the way Fabinho has been utilised in central defence, they've got more midfielders now, so it's kind of the same thing. And Newcastle, I like Newcastle's business with Callum Wilson, with Jamal Lewis, and two frees in Hendrick and Wilson, and even I would say Arsenal have done pretty well. Thomas Partey on deadline day, Gabriel coming in centre back, and the big one for me is keeping hold of Aubameyang and kind of keeping those decent players. Anyone I've missed off? Or
no, honestly, I think you've covered them, all the ones that I had in mind there. Yeah, really impressed with Villa. I think what they've done there is they've realised how important Grealish is, and they've built that squad to complement him. Like having another proved midfielder in there with Ross Barkley is probably going to help him. Ollie Watkins up front. Yeah, I think it's really good business without spending ridiculous amounts of money. And again, I agree with Newcastle as well. Really smart business bringing in Wilson and Fraser for not very much money. Yeah. So yeah, they'd be my other standouts, I think.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah. There wasn't much going on in the Premier League last week, so I think we'll just move straight on to the AFL. What do you reckon?
Well, yeah. I mean, as much as I would like to, but I've got to kind of appeal to the fan base, and I would say that there's probably quite a few people that may take some joy in this next segment. So we want to avoid it, but for those of you that don't know, which I don't think there's very many, Man United and Liverpool lost to a combined score of 13-3 this week. So a 6-1 and a 7-2. So I'll rip the Band-Aid off and I'll talk about United, and then I'll move swiftly on and throw it on to you. So
to that, can't wait.
So Manchester United, we have just talked about the window, poor, and this game was even worse. So took the lead after a minute using United's Plan B, which stands for Bruno penalty. We got a goal there, and I'm thinking, happy days. Spurs coming to Old Trafford, job done. Suddenly, 7 minutes goes by, and it's 2-1 Spurs. Mcgregor at fault for the first, and the back four asleep. De Gea staying on his line. Everyone was at fault, really. And then suddenly, United down to 10 men after 30 minutes. And we spoke about consistency in VAR last week. Yet the same offence happened, yet one player sees red and the other yellow, which I didn't quite understand. 4-1 at half-time, it's game over. They gave up. The game got to 6-1. And the worrying thing for me is third game for Man United this season, and we've been by far second best in every game. And I would argue with Spurs, we were probably third best in that game, because I think even the referee was second best, and there was a couple of calls there. So it was a tough one, a really tough one. Took me a good 48 hours to process and calm down, I think.
I hadn't heard from you for a little while.
But yeah, I know. But listen, following the game, I also put a bet on Spurs to win the league, believe it or not. So put a bet on Spurs to win the league, 18-1, based on the strength in depth, Jose and the magical second season, and the fact that they can score 6 against Man United. I mean, saying that, I'll probably end up putting money on Newcastle next week. So who knows? But no. So yeah, Spurs are looking really good. And speaking of champions, Matt, well, talk me through the Liverpool game, mate. It's 2020. Is it a result that surprised us? But yeah, how did you see that?
Mate, it's quite funny because, I was over here in Australia. I woke up at, it was 4:45, made myself a coffee, get on the couch, check the Premier League app, I see how United have got on, and you see United score, and I'm like, this is like literally counting down the minutes until I can text you. You start watching the game, instantly you've got that first mistake from the keeper, from Joe Gomez, arguably from Robertson playing the disastrous ball back to him, and it just went downhill from there. If you look at the game as a whole, by the end of the second half, I was laughing to myself, because you just like you said, this is just absolutely mad. I don't want to take it I don't want to be too downhearted about it, because these things happen. What I found with Liverpool, especially kind of in this post-COVID era, we don't lose well at all. We don't lose often. But when we do, we go all out to lose. And I think we saw that at the end of last season when we came back after the break, in the City game, just capitulated. And I think that's the same thing that happened here. And granted, there was a couple of deflected goals there, and there's a lot of people looking at the goalkeeper. But I'd say, aside from that first mistake that he made, he doesn't do much else wrong throughout the game, really. but there was problems all over the pitch, and I think you've just got to put it down to one of those days. Gomez had a shocker. I think his head probably went after that first kind of error there, costing that first goal.
Yeah.
But I think with Gomez, what we've got to realize is everyone who comes to play against Liverpool, they've got to target him or Van Dijk. And I mean, who you choosing? Yeah. They're all going to target Gomez, and he's going to have those games where he just has a shocker. I probably would have pulled him at half time, to be honest with you. I think sending him back out there was almost mean.
Right.
But it is what it is. You just look through the rest of the team, and just nobody was on it. The midfield, there was nobody there, to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, really.
Yeah.
Getting invaded already. There was no one there to grab the game by the scruff of the neck. No captains on the pitch, really, even though Van Dijk had the armband. I don't think that he plays his best football when he's got that armband. I think he's too busy worrying about what's going on behind him, keeping his line, what's going on with the keeper. I just don't think he could focus on his own game. So yeah, I mean, I could go through the whole team and pick it apart, but for me, it was one of those games where you've got to take your hat off to Villa, and you've got to say fantastic performance, all over the pitch. Jack Grealish, incredible. Ollie Watkins, took all his chances, absolutely incredible. Helped out by a few deflections, but you have those days, and by the end of it, I was just laughing, really. I don't think it's something that we've got to be overly concerned about straight away. I think the things I'd be more concerned about, if you're Liverpool, looking at the likes of Bobby Firmino and his form at the minute, I think that's more of a concern than the team as a whole. Just it wasn't in the game. Give him little easy balls away. He's been like that for a little while now, where he's not at his best. The downside of that is, the easy thing to do would be to give him a rest, take him out of the team for a little bit. But I'm not so sure that the team and especially our attacking structure works if he's not there. I don't know if we've got another answer to that yet. So that's concerning. Obviously, we've got Everton coming up next once this international break's over, and that's an important game. They're playing really well. We've got to bounce back. We've got to gather ourselves. And I guess the downside is that we've had this international break now in between, which is, I would say, not ideal for us. I don't know how you feel about it with United, but I think I'd have liked to, and I'm sure Klopp would have just liked to get his lads together, get him back on the training pitch and go again. Regroup, figure out what went wrong, and get back out on the pitch. And now everyone's had this week now to stew on it. Liverpool have, United have done the same thing. You've had this week where everyone's had to go away with the national teams, and you'll have had that in the back of your mind, this horrendous defeat.
Yeah.
So I guess it's how quickly we can kind of pull back together and bounce back together. But I'm not overly concerned. I will be if we get turned over by Everton, but I'm not overly concerned yet. What about you? Do you think, from a United perspective, would you have liked to just bounce straight back into this, or do you think there's a bit more of are you more concerned than I am about your result?
No, I'm very worried, and like you say, the international break has come at a really bad time for both clubs. And the reason why, for me, well, first of all, I don't think the break is a good idea, full stop. And I know there's been Euro qualifiers, but there's been a lot of world friendlies, and I can't understand why they are traveling around Europe now playing friendlies in the middle of a pandemic. What is that about? The whole reason the Euros was moved, and the European the European competitions of Champions League and Europa League, they had to change format to one-leg knockouts in one particular place, all go to one particular place to stop the travel. So I don't know how that's been allowed for glorified friendlies. And I think it's just a disaster, full stop, as well, because I feel as though the sting of the defeat, it won't hurt as much as when they come back. And I feel as though these games, it's kind of forgotten about in a way because of the international. I want them to feel the mood around the club, and I want to see them with the reaction online and the doom and gloom. And I kind of want to see all week, or, for the next 10 days between, it should have been working on that defensive structure, defensive drills, what went wrong, analysing the game, and I think that's what we needed. And for me, yes, it's the players in terms of our defence, but the biggest worry for me is, I think the thing that people aren't talking about with Man United is a system change. So I think we've gone 4-3-3, and it's obviously not been working at the start of this season. I would like to see United go to a 3-5-2 in very much a Wolves formation, because if our centre-backs are rubbish, well, if you go Maguire, Bailly and Lindelof together, you put formation, as Paul Merson said, you go in a 3 when you can't defend. So put them in a 3. We've just signed Alex Telles, who's a flying left back, a left wing back. So put him as a left wing back. Put Wan-Bissaka as a right wing back. Have your 3 central midfielders. I would take I would take Pogba out the team and put Donny in there, and then suddenly it's Rashford and it's Greenwood up front, because obviously Martial's suspended, and suddenly that could be a different formation. But they need to practice that in training. They want to work on that 3-5-2 and get the best out of now the players that we've got. And the thing for me is, we talk about system. For Liverpool, has Aston Villa finally cracked the enigma code of how to play against Liverpool? And again, does Klopp look at a formation change, a system change or a formation change in light of that?
It is interesting because I guess the downside of being champions is all eyes are on you, aren't they? Everyone's trying to work out to be you. And I don't think it's any secret that we play this really high line, and if you can get in behind us, you're going to cause us really big problems. I don't think they're going to look at a system change. That's the way we play, and we won a league by however many points. You can't say that it doesn't work. I think what doesn't work is when the team doesn't function the way it should. That midfield needs to work harder. It needs to provide a lot more protection for the back four. When you've got lads in there the other night where Fabinho looked leggy, Keita doesn't play well when the team doesn't play well. He is, again, like I said before, he hasn't got the ability to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and turn it around, where the likes of a Henderson, a James Milner might be able to do that. Just get the foot on the ball. Make that positive change. It just wasn't there. It wasn't there last weekend, and I think once we get the likes of Henderson back in, Thiago back in, Mane playing again, the side looks very different, and they are all players that are going to make a real big difference to the way. And just from a mentality perspective as well, we wouldn't have let the heads go down. They might have shut up shop early if it was, if it wasn't going our way. So no, I don't think we'll see a system change, but I do think we will see the players coming back in and more of a mentality change where we're gonna have to just pull our socks up a little bit.
One thing that I will say quickly is you mentioned about Firmino and kind of his form's a bit, been a bit sort of doom and gloom or hit and miss, whatever you want to say. But I think Liverpool's answer, and although I obviously hate your guts, but I kind of want to see. I would like to think that Jota, I think, could be the Firmino answer. So I reckon you should go Jota up front with Salah and Mane and give him a run of games up front, because he's not an out-and-out striker, much like Firmino isn't, and he works very hard. He's kind of a similar player in a sense, and all of last season and however long he's been at Wolves, he's always been the guy to assist Jimenez, and it's always Jimenez that gets the glory, similar to what Salah and Mane do. So I think he would relish that opportunity of now feeding both of them, like he did with Wolves. I think he was always that second man. So I think that could be a solution.
No, I completely agree, and I hope we do get to see that sooner rather than later. Like I said, I do think Firmino needs to be taken out of the side. We know how good of a player he is and what he contributes to this side, and he's made us tick for the last couple of seasons. But I think it does show that when he's not firing on all cylinders, the system doesn't work. And I think we do. I thought that Minamino possibly was the person they were eyeing up to come in and be that replacement there. But I'm not sure that. I think he's still a bit lightweight. I don't think he's quite ready for it yet. Whereas I think Jota can come in and probably do a job there. Even though I thought he was going to probably be more like Mane's replacement on the left. But I guess needs must. I think they might have to throw him in there. Right, well, I guess moving on from that depressing round of fixtures, we can move on to something a little bit more positive. And we can have a chat about this now because you are officially signed up. I've seen the contract onto the St Kilda bandwagon. Welcome on board, sir.
Thanks, mate. Thank you. It's been a long, tough season as an Essendon supporter. St Kilda in finals. I've put $5 bet on them at 41-1. So you know what? I've signed my contract. I'm officially on the bandwagon. We watched the game together last Saturday night, and I was getting nervous for you as well. And I kind of bought into the excitement and a tight game. Talk me through it? How did you see it?
Oh, it was a fantastic game. You know, it's so good for me just to see Saints in finals, but to see Saints win a finals game for the first time in years. It was awesome. I think in terms of the game itself, I was a bit surprised at the lack of intensity that the Bulldogs brought, but I think that's probably a compliment to us that we really pushed the pace, and I think Brett Ratton got the absolute most out of the Saints players that he could. It was an incredible game for the first 3 quarters anyway.
Yeah.
We ran them ragged. That last 15 minutes, Jesus, I was sweating. I thought we were going to throw it away, but, we held on there in the end.
Yeah.
I think our ability just to unleash those runners kept up the intensity throughout the first 3 quarters, put the points on the board. I was impressed with Max King. Ryder, obviously, incredible ruckman. And it's a real shame that he did his hammy late on and he's not going to be playing tonight against Richmond. So he'll be a big miss. And I guess that leads me on with, so tonight, the reason we're recording this at lunchtime is because the Saints Richmond playing this evening. Coverage starts at about 7, so we'll both be tuning into that. I guess I'll ask you first, and now you're on the bandwagon. How do you think this game's going to play out with Saints and Richmond?
I'm firmly on the bandwagon, but as much as I don't want to say, I think it's time up. I think Richmond will get the win, and that's only because of your out. So you mentioned Ryder. So Ryder, Long, and Carlisle, I think, are all missing.
Yep.
Richmond, I don't know whether is Tom Lynch back. Do you know? What is it back?
Yeah. He's back,
And I think Richmond, really, if you look at last week's game with Brisbane, they actually played very well, Richmond, I thought they played really, really well. And it just showed how good sort of Brisbane was. And I just think they're going to bounce. I really just think that it's time for Richmond to bounce back, really. Everyone's been talking about them in finals and how they play. And I kind of feel as though, as tough as that last quarter in the game was for Saints, I kind of already feel that physical and mental energy has kind of been used up to beat doggies. And I kind of, not to say they've already played the final, but that was a grueler for them. And I just think now Richmond will reassess what went wrong. They played well, but could have tightened up in a couple of areas. And I think Richmond will come out the traps. So you probably don't want to hear that.
I'm realistic. It's a realistic view, isn't it? I do agree with you, like you said. I think Brett Ratton got the absolute maximum out of the Saints last weekend. Yeah. And the question is, can they turn it around and go again? It's a big ask. I think we've really got to capitalize on, I guess, the indiscipline that Richmond showed last week in the game against Richmond. Can we cause them to make those mistakes? When I was thinking about it yesterday, we've really got to put the pressure on them moving forward. We've got to use our runners and get in behind them and put the pressure on. The problem that's going to lead to is in putting that pressure on in the forward half, we're going to leave ourselves massively exposed in the back half. And the only way that we're going to get the positive results out of it, we're going to have to ship goals, and it's going to happen. And I guess it's just making sure that we capitalize on our chances if we can. I don't want to write us off. I think it'll be a really good game. And I think it'll be a high scoring game as well, because I think we know we're going to have to bring that intensity. But I do think in doing so, we're going to leave ourselves wide open as well. So it'll be a classic finals match tonight, I think, and my fingers are crossed, because if you can get over Richmond, you can get over everyone. And just voting we beat them in the home and away season. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you can take from that as well. And obviously, for those that don't know, they don't really follow the AFL, probably more like the UK listeners. Richmond are in this game, although they lost because of second chance. So because they finished in the top 4, they're allowed a second go, hence why Saints won. They lost, so they play them in the next round, and equally so did Geelong as well. So Geelong also play this weekend versus last week's winners in Collingwood. Commiserations, Dino, on the Pies victory, but and congrats to Ash as well. But how do you see Geelong and Collingwood playing out?
I've tipped Collingwood, and I might have lost my mind, and maybe I'm
right. Okay.
Maybe I'm tipping with my heart a little bit because I just want to see the upset. But I was just impressed with Collingwood. I didn't think in a month of Sundays they'd probably get over West Coast. And I think they've proved all season the defense is pretty solid. They kept that up, but they were kicking goals as well, which is the thing they've struggled to do. And I just think sometimes you can get a head of steam up in this and get a bit confident. They've kicked those goals. Mason Cox had an incredible first quarter. If you can kind of replicate that again. I'm also kind of basing it on the fact that I'm hoping Geelong's heads are down a little bit. The confidence is down after a pretty poor showing really against Port Adelaide. So I'm tipping Collingwood.
Yeah.
But God knows, could go either way. What do you think?
I'm actually leaning towards Geelong. So my prediction there is both teams that lost last week, them that are in the top four, are going to bounce back with something to prove. The reason why I think Geelong, again, I thought they played a good game last week, and it was the set shots that let them down. If you look at how many set shots they missed, they would have quite comfortably won that game in the way they were playing. In a sense, I know there was that. I know that is footy, and it's those small margins. Yep. But if Tom Hawkins was firing, he usually hits the goals out from wide as well. He had a couple of chances early on. If they go in, it's kind of a different game. So I think Geelong all week have probably been practicing the set shots, and I think similar to Saints and Collingwood, I think Collingwood have kind of used up the physicality and mental strength because of the tough and tight game against West Coast. Yeah. So I'm looking at Geelong bouncing back and getting the victory.
Perfect. Well, good luck to Ash, I guess. We'll wish you luck and a pies on that one.
Yeah.
All right, that kind of covers it for finals. Next up, Mr. Mcgregor's been chirping on again.
Yeah. Always prominent in the UFC landscape, of course, Conor.
Yes, yeah. And it's interesting actually. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, I think Conor and Porier is happening, and it's happening under UFC as well. So fans are happy. We've got a good fight, and there's a couple of reasons why it's going to happen. I believe is I thought it was going to happen anyway, but. The second thing with Usman and Burns being out of the December 12th pay-per-view, I think that's a good time frame from now till then for Conor to get ready, for Poirier to get ready, and them two can easily, with no title on the line, two names like that can easily take the main event spot, and no one would argue. But other reasons as well is I don't think it's as easy as people think to do an exhibition match without the UFC's kind of first option or the permission. And I kind of think, it's a bit like, I don't know, Rashford and Greenwood wanting to play five-a-side in a five-a-side team. Man United are going to have a say about that because Man United own them in a sense in terms of their naming rights, and they could get injured and all that type of stuff. So it's not as straightforward as that. And I think UFC have seen it now and said, let's get a contract in front of them. Conor's been wanting to fight for months, so that makes Conor happy. Poirier pulled out of a fight because of money. Now he's against Conor, the money fight, so he's going to get the pay that he wants. He's going to get an increase in pay. Yeah. And he was obviously doing it for charity. What I think is going to happen now is the UFC will embrace that, and you'll see UFC good fight T-shirts. It'll be, they will do like a considerable donation, or they're going to get a lot of exposure through embeddeds, through interviews, through media. So I think they will incorporate the charity aspect to it and do their bit, and as I say, try and sell some online merchandise for them. And I've got a feeling that we will see it on that 12th of December, which I should be saying, Ryan Wakelin, if you're listening. Let's go back to earlier on in the year. We had a gentleman's bet about Conor not fighting for 2020, for the rest of 2020. I said he would, and you said he wouldn't. We had until the 31st of December. So by the skin of my teeth, I think I'm going to get Conor fighting by a couple of weeks. So all that's left to say, mate, is we're going to Rockpool, baby. So you better get your wallet out. So
Oh, God.
How do you see the landscape of Mr. Notorious?
It's looking positive. I mean, don't count your chickens yet. First of all, I guess hats off to Conor and Dustin Poirier, because they've really forced the UFC's hand here, haven't they? I don't think the UFC wanted to do it, and I think they've almost forced them to do it. They played the charity card. They basically said they were going to fight anyway. They forced the UFC to get on board. The UFC then issued bout agreements. Job done for them. It looks like the last question now is when. Conor's stipulation, I think, is that it has to be in 2020, which I don't know if you've been on the phone to him, if you've slipped him $50 or something and just be like, come on, this year.
Exactly. And this has just come to me. It can be the proper 12th of December. This just came to me.
This is like a marketer's dream.
There we go. So anyway, carry on.
But the problem is now how you put it on those events, how you put it on those cards, because you've got title fights on those cards. On that 12th of December, Nunes is on that card, right? And
she could be the main.
Well, that's it. But can Conor not be a main event? I don't know if you can have an event and have Conor as the co-main.
No.
But he's not fighting for a title. It might not even be. It won't even be a 5-rounder. So it's how you figure that card out. The UFC's kind of policy is that the title fights, the 5-rounders, are the top of the bill of the main event. Everything else will come second fiddle. The counter to that is, if you're Amanda Nunes, you're like, I don't care, put Conor on the card, because all of a sudden you've got way more eyes on the card than you would have in the first place, which means more money. So I don't think Amanda Nunes is going to be fussed. I think she's playing Megan Anderson. She's expecting to win that one. I don't think she's going to be bothered. But I think the UFC's policy of having like a title fight as a co-main and then Conor as a main, it's a bit weird, and it's against what the normal kind of procedure would be.
Yeah.
So I guess the UFC just have to figure that one out and how they're gonna play it. In terms of the fight itself, I think it's absolute flames. I think it's going to be awesome. The thing is with this one, neither of them, they both fought Khabib in the not so distant past, where you go into a fight and you're worrying about takedowns and grappling and all this kind of stuff. Neither of them have to bother about this. Fight, they can both literally focus on the stand up, the boxing, and they can figure out who's the best. So I think you're going to see the best version of both of them, because they don't have to worry about takedowns or anything like that. I don't think that's going to play into it at all. So I'm really, really hoping that this comes off. And, it makes so much sense as well, because the winner of the fight gets another shot at the title at the end of the day. The big loser in it all is Tony Ferguson, and he's been on Ariel Helwani this week, basically having a cry about it. Because, I mean, through no fault of his own, he's been screwed out of position here. Obviously, he lost to Gaethje, so he falls down the pecking order a little bit. But he had that fight locked in against Porier, and I think it fell out to do with money, I suppose. So he's just falling even further down the pecking order now, because the winner of this theoretically will get the next shot at the title.
Makes you wonder if he'll get Chandler, doesn't it?
Quite possibly. I think that makes a lot of sense. I just don't know. It's just not going to be kind of main event, I don't think.
And the other thing to mention is, because the 12th of December now is looking for that main, like you say, I know Nunes is on the card, but if it's not Conor and Poirier, and you say, well, who's it going to be? Who's going to slot in there? And you think, well, I automatically would say it's going to be the Ultimate Fighter coaches, whoever they are, and whoever they're going to be. So, and it's interesting that the end of Fight Island to the 12th of December is about 6 weeks. So, 6 to 7 weeks, and they need about 6 weeks to film the Ultimate Fighter. So, I'm intrigued to see who that's going to be, because I don't think it'd be a Kobe Masvidal as much as we want, because that is such a big fight that it's kind of not enough time for both of them to get ready and do the show as well and have a full camp. Would it be a Conor Poirier as coaches? So who knows? So that is still to be confirmed. They was originally going to go with Conor Khabib for TUF. So yeah, who knows who it's going to be?
That's a bit of an admin, isn't it? I looked into a bit more into that about the Conor Khabib thing, and Dana had said that it had fallen off because Khabib was unhappy of what Conor had said when he released Dana's DM screenshots. Yeah. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would Khabib care what Conor's sharing about Dana? I think that was just a bit of a dig at Conor for actually doing it. I think he's just saying he's taking them away. Yeah. I'm not so sure they were ever down to be captains. I did think about it, and I think I texted you about it as well. Yeah. But I just don't. I don't know how you could do that. I don't know how they could be, them and the crews could be in the same room as each other and not be killing each other. It'd be amazing entertainment, but from a security perspective, I just don't know how you do it.
Would Chandler and Tony be coaches to try and keep Tony sweet, and say, well, we'll give you.
I just don't know if Chandler's a big enough name yet in the UFC to do that. It's an interesting, again, the good thing is there's so many options at the minute. There really is. The other thing I'm wondering about as well, I wonder if the Burns and what's his name? Usman are maybe being considered for it. The reason being, I don't know. They obviously pulled that fight off the card, but I'm not really sure why. There was a line that went out that Usman needed more time, but I was like, more time for what? You've had loads of time.
They're doing coursework or something.
It doesn't make any sense to me that. And there's something going on. There's a diddle going on here.
Yeah, okay.
Where they've pulled them off that card for a reason. It's either to put somebody else on there, i.e. Conor, or I don't know, maybe they're prepping them for an Ultimate Fighter coach's gig,
And from one fantasy Ultimate Fighting coaches to others, let's move straight on because they will be in a similar bracket. Matt, Israel Adesanya versus John Jones. What's going on? Does it happen? And if so, when does it happen? What's going on here?
It's wild, isn't it? Because everything that's going on at the minute, Izzy's in bloody isolation and he's just going mad with his memes on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like the perfect time to do it. Jones doesn't have a belt. He's kind of floating between weights, so doesn't quite know what he's doing. No one can dispute that Izzy's the king of the middleweights. Yeah. So they're both in a position where they could jump in and do something a bit mad. Yeah. And the UFC are pretty good at jumping on these things when it's hot, you just do it.
Yeah.
As much as I want to see it, and it would be amazing, I don't think that it should be done yet. I think it would mean a really big change of direction from Izzy, because he said that he wants to dominate this division. He wants to clean it out. He's got work to do there yet in that division to be, go up to GOAT status. It would be a risky move for him to go up and fight Jones. And when I say go up, and I don't even know to what weight we're going up to. I don't know where you're doing that. Yeah. Whether we both where Jones has to come back down to 205, Izzy goes up to 205 and they do it there. But then what's it for? Like what's the game? The only reason I can see them doing it is if somehow they could figure out to do it as tough coaches or something like that. Right. As much as I feel like I'm being a bit of a damner on it, because it is hot right now and it absolutely could happen. There's been weirder and wilder things that they've done. But I think this will still be relevant. If they both stick to the guns and keep fighting in their respective divisions, it won't go away.
Yeah.
But what I would worry about is that he's being so dominant in the middleweight division now, and he's got work to do there. There's incredible fights for him there. It's not like he's just, he's already cleared it out and there's no one for him to fight. But I would worry if you go up, say if you went up to a higher weight and got starched by Jones, for instance, knocks your confidence, you might have a longer term injury or anything like that, and it then hampers your run at middleweight, and all of a sudden your career's, falling to bits. It's a big risk, and I wouldn't do it yet.
Yeah.
Do you agree, or are you just not get it on?
No, I believe if it's going to happen, they have to do it now. They have to do it now. Yeah. And not to say that's the right decision, but for me, I just don't see, as much as it's a great fight, of course, there's two big names, two great champions. I think Jones doesn't have anything to gain from this. And I don't think he has anything to prove. Like, it's Izzy who is talking about, beating the GOAT and becoming that GOAT status. So obviously he thinks I'll get a John Jones on my resume. But John Jones has got bigger fish to fry in the heavyweight division. He's confirmed he's moving up to heavyweight. He's putting all this weight on, and he wants to test himself against your Miocic's, your Ngannou's, maybe a Brock Lesnar down the track.
That's what I want to see. I want to see those fights.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like, well, like you say, is Izzy now coming up to, because automatically it's straight down to 205 straight away. So John Jones is back to being light heavyweight, which is the whole reason he gave the belt. Nothing excited him. So suddenly it's Izzy versus Jones. If Izzy beats Jones, then is it Izzy versus Jan? Yeah. Does he go for the light heavyweight belt? But then what happens to the middleweight belt? He hasn't dominated his division like John Jones has. So you've got to do 9 years or whatever John Jones did. You've got to dominate for a decade if you want to do that. And at the same time, a lot of people say John Jones is the GOAT and the modern day GOAT and all that type of stuff. So you don't have to prove it to a smaller guy.
No.
I've not heard one person say Khabib Nurmagomedov will never be the GOAT until he beats Henry Cejudo. I've not heard it. No. I've not heard it. Because it's an argument that you go, but he's a smaller guy. So what are you talking about? What does it matter?
It makes no sense.
Yeah, and that's what I think. I just think if we get it as fans, of course, we always want to see the big fights, but at the same time, it doesn't fit. It mucks the whole schedule for a couple of years with fights and landscape of divisions and kind of costs 3 divisions, middleweight, heavyweight, and light heavyweight, will all be in a bit of a no man's land just for this one fight. So I just think if it's going to happen, do it now before John Jones starts eating a load of Big Macs and he's got to fight the big boys, you know?
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting. I think we put that one to bed. I think we've pissed on that bonfire.
Yeah, basically.
But, you know, again, like we always say, weirder things have happened. 2020, God knows, it absolutely could make it work.
Yeah,
I think, but it would almost feel like one of the, you know, like a Mayweather McGregor thing, like amazing spectacle, like everyone's. Yeah. But then once it's over, you're a bit like, now just back to normal service now. I guess it doesn't really mean anything. Okay. Well, we've put the world of UFC to rights there. I guess we can have a look at this weekend's card as well. We've got another fight on Fight Island Sunday here in Australia, Saturday everywhere else.
Yeah.
It's a fairly good card actually as well, isn't it?
It is.
What's jumping out to you? What's kind of the first one that you want to mention? And we won't go through them all, but.
Obviously there's a couple of names on the prelims, but I think the one that automatically jumps out to both me and you really is Tom Aspinall. I would say is the big one because Tom's a guy who excites us very much. We've heard a lot about him obviously through the Fight Disciples and Nick Pete and the guys, and he's our resident Wiganer, so it's nice to have a Wiganer in UFC. Good. And he fights out of Team Carbon, obviously, like Darren Till. It's a lot of talk, obviously, about him, and obviously we've got a couple of mutual friends as well, I believe, with Tom. So it's just nice to see someone who has made it from kind of close to where we're from, and is on the way. But the reason why he excites us, in my opinion, is this guy is a heavyweight, yet moves like a middleweight. He is unbelievable. His hands, his footwork, he moves around the ring, so good around the cage. Orthodox stance. I think he's going places in this division, and I'm going to put my neck on the line and say he will be the UFC heavyweight champion. I'm calling it big. And the thing that we talk about as well is a realistic call out. So in his last fight, he called out Sergei Spivak. Which was a realistic call for him, but it was more like my next fight a bit Sergei Spivak. It was more like that, but he called him out. Spivak obviously Spivak was pulled out of the bout. So Alan Bado has stepped in. He's making his UFC debut. From what I can see, he's obviously got a few knockouts to his name, but he's a bit of a Muay Thai fighter, but I'm leaning towards Aspinall. Matt, how do you see it? What's your thoughts on Big Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. Just super excited on this guy. Like everything we've not seen heaps of him because he's new. He's only fought once in the UFC, but everything here is super exciting. And just the things that you see that he's done throughout his career to prepare him for the UFC. I think he could have been in the UFC a lot sooner than he did, but I think he chose, to take his time. He's been Tyson Fury's sparring partner. So if you want a heavyweight, learn how to move, how to have that right mentality to go into a contest, there's no one better than Tyson Fury to spend some time with. Coming out of Team Carbon, training with Darren Till, Mike Grundy, he's got all the ingredients to be a UFC champ. And I think he's got his head on his shoulders as well. I think he's sensible. You say you can tell that with the call out he made last time. He didn't shout for a top 10 name straight away, even though he had a pretty emphatic knockout. He made the sensible call out. He got the fight straight away because it made sense. No one had to go back and wrangle the deal or anything. Unfortunately, it fell out. I think if he'd have got that fight against Spivak, a win there would have propelled him a bit further forward. Unfortunately, he's fighting someone else now who's making his UFC debut. I don't know anything about the guy he's fighting, but I don't think he's going to last very long. I feel like he's been fed to the wolves there. I think he'll be out of there in the first round. And I think this time, I'm sure he's a smart guy. I'm sure he'll have someone in mind who he's going to call out. Someone he knows he can fight relatively soon. He'll want to keep rolling on. Maybe he'll look for it next time they're on Fight Island, or if things start to open up again at the start of the new year. I think he'll look to get another fight in. But I wouldn't even be surprised if he gets another one in before the end of the year, if he doesn't take any damage in this one. He's got dynamite in his hands. He moves really well, and he's a black belt. If it does so happen to go to the ground, all of that combined, it's super dangerous. So I can't see past an early shower for him on Sunday.
Yeah, that's good. Do you think he'll ever be UFC champion, or have I jumped the gun too much there?
It's got all the ingredients. Yeah, it's got all the ingredients. It's hard to say, when you haven't seen him. You haven't seen him fight anyone, but if you're going to make the bold early call. Yes, he definitely has the ingredients to be a UFC champ.
Yeah.
Look at that. You ready to go first?
That's it. Wigan running the UFC.
Absolutely. And then if you look down onto the main card, first kind of fight that jumped out to me there, the Ben Rothwell fight. I think you're a bit of a Ben Rothwell fan. I haven't seen heaps of him, which is a surprise when I looked at his resume, and I was like, how did I somehow overlook this fella? He's literally fought everyone, but he took a bit of a hiatus, didn't he? He hadn't fought for about 3 years between 2016 and 2019, which is probably why I've somehow overlooked him. But he's been in there with everyone. He made his debut against Cain Velasquez.
Right.
So, how do you see this one going with him?
Yeah, like you say, I'm a big fan of Big Ben. I think it's a great matchup. I've been a fan of ever since he a few years ago, maybe like 4 years ago, he guillotine choked Josh Barnett, who had never been submitted and who was a veteran MMA fighter. So ever since then, I thought, wow, that is pretty impressive fashion to do that to Josh Barnett. So like you say, Rothwell, experienced guy. I think he's had 50 MMA fights, I think. Absolutely fought the who's who of kind of the bygone era. So I kind of say, like you say, your Velasquez's, your Gonzagas, your Overeems, your Arlovskis, your Mark Hunts, your Roy Nelsons. So all those, the heavyweight OGs of the UFC, really. So he's fought all those guys. And the guy he's fighting, Marcin Tybura, is obviously he's a heavyweight. So like we say a lot on this podcast, anything can happen, and it's kind of 50-50 fight, because that's the heavyweight nature. But I think with Tybura, I think he has won his last 2 fights. But in terms of big names, there's not really that on the resume so far. Probably his biggest win was against Stefan Struve in terms of a notable name. He's kind of lost against like Verdum and kind of anyone then of note he's kind of lost. So I think Big Ben will prevail, and that veteran experience will show here. And I think he will knock out Tybura.
Oh, okay, right. So my prediction for this one, I'm just looking at the records, and a little bit of Tybura, like you say, he's had a couple of wins in the last couple of fights, but not against really the top, the top quality, opposition. He's got losses there. He has fought a few names. Verdum, he was a defeat. Derek Lewis, he's fought. He's been in there with Gokhan Saki as well. Gokhan Saki, he's been in there with him.
Augusto Saki.
Another defeat. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, not Gokhan.
Augusto.
Wrong Saki.
Yeah. Too much Saki.
Gokhan, I was like, not Gokhan. He's not Japanese. He's been in there with those guys. Come up short. When I looked at Rothwell's, kind of recent performances, there's lots of decision wins in there, and I think his experience might drag him through to another decision win in this one.
Right. Okay.
That's
respectable.
My call.
And from one veteran OG probably to another, I'd say an interesting bout, and is Edson Barbosa and Amir Khani. How do you see this one?
I think it's a very dangerous fight for Amir Khani.
Right.
I think it's a late replacement, I believe. I don't think it was.
Yeah, Yusuf.
Yusuf was supposed to fight, wasn't
he? Yeah.
Someone up there doesn't like Matt Miakani because he's feeding him absolute killers. Barbosa's coming into this fight off 2 very close split decision losses, both of which could have gone his way.
Yeah.
Neither of which did. So I think, if anything's going to light a fire in you to come in and make a change there and want to finish your next fight, it's that. So I think you're going to see Barbosa come out the traps here. He's fighting Amir Khani, who's known as a grappler. He had a really good finish on Fight Island. I think it was in July, fought last. Another submission finish. So you know he's dangerous. If he gets you on the ground, you're in a bit of trouble. The problem with that is you've obviously got those leg kicks to contend from Barbosa, which, ask anyone who's fought, aside from probably Khabib, what he thinks about Barbosa's leg kicks, and you're not going to want to go anywhere near them. He's gonna kick your shins to shreds. Yeah. I think that he'll come with an intensity here to try and get this done. I don't think he's going to want to leave this to the judges. He's been burnt too many times now. So yeah, I think this will be a fairly quick and a fairly decisive victory for Barbosa. He's come down he's come down a weight here to fight at featherweight. On the day, he's going to be a lot bigger than Amir Khani as well. I think the only reason you're coming down that weight, the only reason you're putting yourself through those weight cuts is because you want to be a champ. And I think he'll have really lit a fire in his belly after those last decision losses. Yeah, I think he's going to come really intense, and I think he'll get Amir Khani out there pretty quick. What do you reckon?
It's interesting what you say, because I'm going to be quite critical of Barbosa. And like you say, he's on a 3-fight slide. Obviously, he made his heavyweight debut against Dan Ige, which is, was obviously a good fight. Like you say, come to heavyweight, bigger guy. But the Edson Barbosa that UFC fans want, and the Edson Barbosa that they all know, is the old Edson Barbosa. I don't want to see I don't want to see split decision. I don't want to see decision Barbosa. No. I want to see highlight reel Barbosa that we all know he is. So I want to see the old Barbosa, the one that everybody talks about as that dangerous fighter. I've not seen it in the last few. I want to see the Barbosa that fought Pettis, Melendez, and Dariush. He won 3 fights in a row, and then I think he fought Khabib after that. He was on a bit of a hot streak.
He was, yeah.
So I want to see that guy because, so I want to see, like I said, the highlight. It's in UFC highlight reel history of the spinning kick, head kick to I can't remember his name. It was something like Terry Etin or something. So that goes down in the folklore as what he can do. What I will say about Barbosa is it's going to be on, it's got to be that stand-up fight, because Amir Khani, I kind of feel as though it's that classic matchup of Barbosa on his way down, from what I've seen, and Amir Khani on his way up. So it kind of, it's kind of tipping the balance a little bit. The thing I will say about Amir Khani is, yes, it's a step up in competition. Of course it is with Barbosa. But the interesting thing for Amir Khani is because he fights out of SBG, he is very much a submission specialist. Obviously, you've got Dennis in that camp, but I think he's learned quite a lot from Gunnar Nelson as well, obviously in that camp. So I think if Amir Khani knows that it's the old Barbosa he's facing, Barbosa will want this to be a stand-up, a lot of kicks and those hopefully a flashy knockout. Whereas Amir Khani, I think his best joy will be to get him down and try and submit him, because he's got 6 UFC submission victories in his MMA career, of submission. So I think that is the game plan for him. But I want to see it, and I want to see a Barbosa highlight reel KO. Otherwise, you're not getting me back on side until I see some. I don't want to see another decision, regardless of the fight. So I
agree. I think like you say, you're exactly right there. With this, is like that crossroads fight for both of them. It's Amir Khan on his way up. He's fought the who's who of like the European MMA scene, and now he's coming across, and you're fighting the best that the rest of the world, the UFC top 10 has to offer. The question is, can he compete at that level? And Barbosa, you're on a bit of a slide. You've got a few decisions. Can you turn this around now? This is your chance. We're giving you someone here you should be able to beat. If you can't beat Amir Khani, you're out of there. So it'll be an interesting fight because there's a lot on the line for both of them, and they make for classic matchups, don't they? So for me, I think Barbosa gets it done relatively quickly. What do you think? Where you putting your hat on?
Yeah, I'm gonna say late in round 2. Barbosa, the old Barbosa, will get him out of there.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I love it. There we go. And then that takes us to the main event. Marlon Moraes and Corey Sandhagen. Another interesting fight. I think the thing about this one is that they're both, again, coming off. They're both a little bit down and out. And again, I've got something to prove, which is a bit weird when you say that for Marlon Moraes, because he won his last fight, but it feels like he didn't, which is really good. And Sandhagen was on an awesome run, awesome streak. And then it came to a very quick end with a submission from Sterling in his last outing. So both of these competed in that top 5 of the really exciting bantamweight division. But they've both got something to prove to show and remind everyone that they belong there. How do you see this fight playing out?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited for this main event. And to be honest, I've been trying to toy up the winner all week. It's back and forth. I'm kind of thinking, I'm kind of looking at both matchups, and like you say, both have got a point to prove. I don't think Moraes won the last fight with Aldo. I very much think Aldo won that fight. And as you say, Sandhagen will want to bounce back. It was a very quick submission loss to Aljamain Sterling, and that was such an important fight for him, because then that was now into the title picture with Petr Yan and the whole of that landscape there. So he would be very disappointed with that. But I think I'm leaning towards Sandhagen. Now, I know Moraes is a very well-rounded fighter. I think he's great in every area. Obviously, quite a big guy as well. So kind of, that wrestling side to him as well. But I really like the fight IQ of Sandhagen, and I'm going to say Sandhagen. I just like that he's still a young fighter as well, only 28. And I think we're going to see a lot of great footwork from him. I think we're going to see a lot of in and out, quick shots, a bit of pop on the punches, in and out, fast hands, and does not want to get in close to Marlon Moraes, because I think if he gets in close, it'll turn more into that, that bit of clinching game, Marlon Moraes trying to ragdoll him around a little bit, or dirty boxing, or that type of matchup, where I think Sandhagen's better on the outside, in and out, and keep landing his punches. So I'm going to lean towards a Sandhagen decision victory. What about yourself?
Yeah, it's similar to yourself. I've gone back and forth on this one. It's really tough, isn't it? Because you saw that Sandhagen that kind of came up through that division, hadn't really fought any of the bigger names yet. And once he has got into that top 5, top 10 range, he's slowed down a little bit, and he's had a few more decision wins. It's a really tough test fighting Moraes, and I think the way it's going to, I think Moraes is going to have to come out and put the pressure on early. Like you said, Moraes has got to get hold of him. He's got to get close to him. He's going to want it to be a pretty dirty, rough and ready fight. Whereas I think Sandhagen's going to want to be smarter. He's got that unorthodox movement. You don't quite know what to expect with him. Incredible footwork. Reminds me a bit of like a tall Dominic Cruz a little bit. I think that he's going to want to stay out of the way. He's going to want to pick him off from the outside. How do I think it'll go? I think the fundamentals of the striking exchanges will favor Marlon Moraes. I think his intensity early doors, and it's how long he can keep it up for, because I think he'll start really intense. If he can get Sandhagen out of there relatively quickly, I think it'll be obviously job done to Moraes. The longer it goes on, the more I tend to agree with yourself that it might well be a decision win for Sandhagen. If I'm putting my hat anywhere, I think the power and the intensity of Moraes will get him the decision. Will get him the victory here. I don't think he'll go the distance. I'd say maybe a 3rd round stoppage for Marlon Moraes.
Right.
What's also interesting on the back of this one is they've not really made any movements with Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling fight. That seems like the obvious way to go. I'm wondering if they're waiting to see if Moraes wins this fight against Sandhagen. And there's a good chance if he puts a statement performance down here, he gets straight in there with Petr Yan. Because I think they know, even though they gave it to Aldo because we think he won, the judges said he didn't. He didn't win that fight. And I wonder if the UFC feel like they owe him a chance, really. Obviously, that would mean shafting Aljamain Sterling again. But I'm wondering, you've got these empty slots on these cards here. I'm wondering if the reason they haven't made that fight with Petr Yan is because they're waiting to see what happens here. And I wonder if Marlon Moraes knows that. Again, it's added incentive. It's like there's a title shot on the line here for me. Not so much for Sandhagen yet. I think he still needs another couple of wins. But for Moraes, if he can win this in emphatic style, I wonder if he'll be pushed up to that title shot with Yan. I don't know. What am I way off on that one? But...
No, you're right. What you say. It's interesting because, just thinking off the top of my head here, I don't know whether Petr Yan fights out of the USA, but automatically you think, why is it not he should be a Fight Island champion? He should have been on a potential fight night. A Fight Island matchup. So I actually don't know what's going on there. So, like you say, whether they're holding off or I don't think any are injured at the moment, or because I'm looking back, I don't know what Petr Yan's, when was his last fight? Early on in this year, would you say?
Yeah, whenever he fought Aldo. Early, it must have been like post-COVID, I think. It wasn't that long ago, but long enough where you could have turned it around again. Didn't take a lot of damage from Aldo, really. And Aljamain Sterling's jumping in the bit to get back in there because he's super fresh. He got a submission in the first round. He's desperate to get back in there. So, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense.
I think wasn't Yan Aldo.
It was on a big card.
There was actually, now that you say Yan Aldo, I think he was on the first Fight Island. I think it was Masvidal Usman. I think he was on that.
You might be right. Yeah, you might be right.
I think he was.
It is because it's on the poster we've got in our. It's on that big poster.
Right.
From Railhouse. Yeah, Yan and Aldo.
Right. Okay.
So it is.
So that was the first
Fight Island fight. Right. Masvidal. So what was that? When would that have been? July.
Yeah.
So I mean, those dates, end of November, beginning of December. They've also got Petr Yan's name written all over it as well.
Yeah.
So got off at a tangent there, but just because it's up in the air, and I don't know why they've not made that fight yet. I do wonder whether Moraes is fighting for a chance for a title shot here, which is added incentive for him. Yeah. Amazing. Well, I think that wraps us up for this week. We've got another week, a good weekend of sports to look forward to. Just kicking off with Saints tonight. Thank God there's no Premier League. We can have a rest from that. We don't need another.
Yeah, we need a mental rest. We need a mental and an emotional rest, I think.
We absolutely do. Everyone, for tuning in, for listening. Like we always say, we really appreciate any interactions you have with us. So give us a like, give us a share, tell your mates about us if they're interested in this type of stuff. And we'll be back next week.